David Less, in a recent class, spoke of conscience being our guide, and how Hazrat Inayat Khan used this term conscience to refer to the inner guide. I'd like to explore that a little more as we try to understand what that means to each of us. Let's begin with a few words from Hazrat Inayat Khan. As soon as one knocks at the gate of one's heart, from there the answer comes. And it is a truer answer than any other person can give. There is no one who can know us as much about us, our life, our affairs, objects, motives, as we do ourselves. And therefore, nobody can advise us better than ourselves. Conscience can give you better guidance than any teacher or book. It is a living teacher awakened in oneself, one's own conscience. The teachers, the gurus, the murshids, their way is to awaken the conscience in the pupil, to make clear what has become unclear. We in the West, you know how terms change with time, and conscience, I'm sure, had a different meaning and a depth of expression about 100 years ago, or 80 or 90 years ago. In our flow of language, conscience is so directly connected to a sort of shallow one, which is just a guilty conscience. Surely that's a part of conscience, but it's kind of this shallow part, that's been imprinted upon you by your parents without your consent. So let's refer to inner guidance, or even better, the spirit of guidance as we talk about these things. Well, I've set up some very specific forms to try to help me with the awakening and the fluid expression of my inner guidance. The forms are, I'm studying David Less's book, and so I'm studying the book, and then above that there is a channel that at various times gives me guidance as I call out for help, or as I seem to need it. Some guidance comes from above. And that's how I picture it, so to speak. And the above, to a large extent, is a kind of embodiment of David Less. I even use the cover of his book as a way of kind of cueing in on that. Well, let's look at this one specifically. I've been with David Less for 20-some years, and I did the video recording and the audio recording, and like a lot of transcripts, and I just really, I absorbed a lot in the process, right? And so there's all these pieces that I've absorbed from his teachings, all these pieces, these mosaic of pieces that I've collected, that I remembered. I'm not saying it's all his teachings, I'm just saying it's the ones I remembered. This channel that's set up above me, let's say it did have the persona of David Less, and he was going to give me guidance, Well, he doesn't have in his repertoire all these different aspects of his teachings, all these different pieces. He doesn't have those. He only has the ones that I heard, and they meant something deeply to me. That's his alphabet. That's his set of words that he can use to express his guidance towards me. So this persona selects from this collection things that could help the situation that's been described by Jerry Scott as he's struggling with this or he's struggling with that. And he selects one, and he sends it to me to try to help, to support me. In fact, that's the name of the channel above. It's Support, And of course, if we were trying to continue this analogy even more completely, this persona, which is David Less, that's supporting me would have within his repertoire, of course, all the pieces I remembered from him and all the pieces of my life that I remembered that somehow were really important to me and so who's giving me guidance? Is it David Less? Or all along has it been that inner spirit, the spirit of guidance that has been listening through my ears for that which I need? And then it gets really confusing about listening and speaking and, I-thou relationship. But spirit of guidance, that's how it operates. In reading Hazrat Nayat Khan's some hints he gave on how to approach development of your conscience, that guide that is your conscience, he suggested something that was a kind of deferential approach to conscience, a little bit like you approaching the priest, kind of in deference. Well, that doesn't quite work for me exactly, but it does work also, because there is a humility and an appreciation and a love for that which comes forth. And so even though it's coming in a sense from the way I hear, David Less has been the speaker of that which I hear and call out to hear. And in this I-thou relationship, I'm able to have enough distance to where I can appreciate that, honor that, really feel loved, consoled. Obviously it's a bit of a trick, but whoa, it's all a gigantic trick, if we're talking about God, seeing God, listening with the ears, speaking, hearing, all these things that have to do with the oneness of it all kind of blurs together. But so it seems pretty simple to me. This thing works for me. This way of getting in touch with my conscience, my spirit of guidance, works for me. Now I have something a little more complex happening on my other two channels. I've got a Sufi baby boomer, Sufi baby boomer. And that's kind of, Jerry Scott, born as a safe baby boomer and kind of trying to make his way, and he's struggling. He's an aspirant, he's sincere, and, that's him. And then above the channel of support, above the channel of support, is called the Sufi Scientist. And that the Sufi Scientist is embodied Pir Vilayat, my lifetime teacher, and also me. I'm the Sufi Scientist. I'm trying to figure these things out. Even my dad's in there someplace. His rational thought, his clearness, And so here's this channel above that then gives me support and guidance, consoles me, and it's just a little bit more complex. Because truly, I speak with my own voice when this one here is probably a Sufi Scientist. I speak with my own voice, and it is a voice that is sort of unique to me, and, at the same time, it's kind of in the reflection of Pir Vilayat. I'm his student, and I'm a kind of a scientist, a kind of nerdy guy, and I'm like that. I have to understand. It helps me to understand. That's how I can move, how I can leap forward, how I can soar by an understanding. So it has to do with the speaking the listening, and the following. And by setting these channels up, the speaking comes, the listening comes, and my appreciation for the wisdom that comes, and then the will to follow is generated in the overall process, and it also is a product of a feeling like it's time. It's time. It's easy to somehow demote this process of inner guidance to, I don't know, a great big bag full of shoulds or something like that you've collected along in your life, or shoulds or I hope so's. There is something about clear vision, clarity of vision and seeing. There's an aspect of magical, charming quality to this that's not in the middle range. There's something quite wonderful happening. It is the seeing and the scene and the dance that one dance, and it's happening right here, in me, and reflected in you.